Well, good afternoon, and thank you for being here. I'm John Godfrey. I'm Vice President of Public Policy and Regulatory Affairs for Samsung in Washington, D.C. I want to welcome you here for 2 very important hours. The rest of the afternoon, we're going to do something critical with you, with our partners in the developer community, and that's focus some attention on doing the right thing for our customers, for consumers. And I think what that means, first and foremost, is making great new products and applications and services for them that will revolutionize their health. We've been hearing about that all day today. We've heard some really exciting stuff. But in addition, it also means making sure that we're keeping them safe and that we're keeping their incredibly sensitive personal information private. So that's what we want to spend a little time on. We have an obligation together, Samsung and the community, to do the right thing, and that's because it's the law and because it's the way consumers want to be treated. So to help with that, we have first a terrific speaker that it's my honor to introduce to you. And then in an hour, we'll have a panel that he will join to continue the discussion. So let me introduce the featured speaker today from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, Bakul Patel. He's the Associate Director for Digital Health. I'm going to introduce you for just a second, Bakul, because I need to sing your praises. I know you want to get busy.
I was going to stop him from singing praises.
Associate Director for Digital Health in FDA's Center for Devices and Radiological Health, which is responsible for approval of medical devices. But what's exciting and that you need to know is that this is a brand new job that was created. Bakul is the founder of this new position. He's been with the FDA for many years, and before that, he has a long history and pedigree as an engineer and working in the technology industry. So he actually understands us and what we do. And he's going to talk to you about how, as innovators, you can engage with regulated medical devices and services in a way that will work for you, work for your business, and work for consumers. So that's all I want to say, but except you're lucky to have this next speaker. So help me welcome Bakul Patel.
Thanks, John. Thank you. You know, when I came this morning to this convention center, and I was thinking, there's nobody here wearing ties. I'm the only guy who's wearing ties. So I'm going to do this right now, just to fit in with the crowd, to take this out, because it doesn't make sense for me to do that, have a tie while you guys don't have it. So again, as John talked about, not only is it important for the federal agencies to understand where technology is heading, but it's also important for us to sort of understand what the culture is about. And one of the reasons why I'm here to the West Coast and I'm flying back tonight is exactly to reach out to you folks to sort of explain what is it that we're doing in digital health and why is it so important and why are we so excited about digital health at FDA. So let me start with digital health. You heard today the keynote speaker this morning, and Ram and everybody talked about digital health is exciting. It's sort of the new frontier for us in the health arena. It's putting the versioning behind healthcare. We didn't have versioning behind healthcare before. Software used to be known as software 1.0, 2.0, and so on. There used to be versioning. We never thought about versioning healthcare. Now is the opportunity, and I think you guys are making that opportunity possible by creating platforms like Samsung's talk about SAMI, and I've been sitting here listening to all the excitement and the ways things can evolve, and things are churning in my head. I'm going, wow, such a great time to be in this area to sort of understand how healthcare can be transformed. And what I mean by that, it's not going to be transformed in silos like many speakers talked today. It's going to be more about bringing data, bringing solutions, bringing sensors. At the same time, what are we doing that for? Is actually empowering patients and for looking for better outcomes. It really excites me sort of to say that you guys are right in the middle of that and a tremendous opportunity to sort of take healthcare to the next level. Guess I didn't put one thing on this slide, and and I want to talk about that. I think it's going to also reflect us as patients, us as individuals, being better taken care of as we grow old, as we fall sick, or as we sort of be healthy or stay healthy. That means the cost of healthcare is also going to go down in the US, which is also, again, beneficial to us. We are talking about motivators, we're talking about behavioral, we're talking about other things, but really it comes down to how can we make patients, and you keep hearing me use the word patients, and when I say patients, it's really everybody. Everybody's going to be a patient, everybody who's healthy will be in a place where we need to be taken care of. Everybody who's already been taken care of will be individuals. So really, when I use the word patient, it's about public health, so to speak. So what do I mean by taking healthcare to the next level? It's really the connectivity, the data, taking healthcare from a clinical setting or clinic-based setting to where patients live. I call it knowing the patients and knowing individuals in their wild. And it's a really good thing for people to sort of understand how people behave outside of the clinical setting. Also understanding, here's an opportunity for us to understand how people behave and what's the physiology of human beings actually is. And what does that mean? We've been trying to sort of understand the fantastic EKG or ECG that we have today, the blood pressures we know today, the glucose monitors. Can we understand other things? So we have an opportunity in front of us with not only the sensors that we know of today, but also sensors we are not used to thinking about as health sensors or healthcare sensors. We really are transitioning from treatment to prevention. And to me, that's going to be a key to success. If we can prevent being patients, I think we have sort of solved some of the big healthcare issues that we have today. What does that take? I think it takes everybody working together in order to make this happen. That not only means developers, not only means folks like Samsung or other platform makers, but also means federal government and everybody else in the healthcare space, the physicians, the doctors, the caregivers, you as an individual also will have to contribute to this next level of healthcare where we talk about treatment we talk about prevention rather than treatment. So I'm going to share with you the boring slides from now on in order to talk about the law, what we do, what's our vision, and then sort of get to how that all ties in to our contribution from a federal perspective to this excitement that I've been talking about and I'm sort of being energized about. And in fact, sitting here listening to the keynote this morning, I was so pumped. I'm thinking all kinds of things you could do with virtual reality inside the body, not just outside the body. So think about that for a second, and it probably takes us to a different level. And those are the kind of things that goes in my head. So I will cover what FDA's goal. I will talk about how we're sort of contributing in the space. For the last few years, we've been sort of working towards sort of creating a path for folks to sort of create patient-empowered tools, not only patient-empowered tools, but also create patient engagement tools, at the same time focusing on where we need to focus on as opposed to focusing on everything. So I'll talk about that. And then, as John mentioned, we are starting to take digital health seriously at the Center for Devices at FDA. And it's a short form for Center for Devices and Radiological Health. At the center, we've been sort of setting up a structure that will be more attuned to the world that you guys are living in, more attuned to the world where the next world's going to be in terms of how do you get ourselves digital future ready. So I'll talk about a brief, it's all a work in progress, so I'll just caution you that none of these thoughts have been completely vetted out, but this is my vision, this is the way we are thinking, this is the way we want to go. A lot of details needs to be worked out in terms of how we move forward, but again, it creates a path and opportunity for everybody. So here's the vision for the Center for Devices. And if you see the very first word in the vision is patients. Our mission for FDA has been public health, promoting and protecting public health. The first thing that comes to mind is patients to having access to high quality and safe and effective medical devices. That's our role. we also, at the same token, we want to promote medical device innovations. And we see this a lot happening in traditional medical devices world. The implants, the pacemakers of the world. I mean, all those things are happening as we know of today, the stents, the drugs, et cetera. But we think about digital health. I think there's a lot more to be done and probably new grounds to be covered going forward. So this vision still fits in the world of digital health. So rather than reading the slides, I can just give you a two-slide sort of a background on what FDA does. Can I see a raise of hands to see how many people actually know what a medical device is defined as in the Act? I got 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8, 10 people. So for the rest of you, anything that is not metabolized by body, by chemical action, is considered a medical device. What it means is if it's used for diagnosing, treating, curing, or mitigating disease in a human, disease or a condition in human, is considered a medical device. If you think about it for a second, not everything in the world is a medical device. The phone in a doctor's office is not a medical device. A pen in a doctor's office is not a medical device. A letter opener is not, just because it's in a clinical setting. But then you talk about the scalpels, the software that's used to read an image and to point where a lesion is or where a tumor is, or differentiate between different things. Those are all software as medical devices, but also thinking about it, there's a lot of stuff that happens in between the infusion pumps of the world. So here's an example. The products that are considered medical devices range from tongue depressors, thermometers, to complex robotic surgery devices, and everything in between you can think about. So that's the heterogeneity of medical devices that's in front of us. What does that mean, and how does FDA regulate it? If you think about all the devices that we oversee, it's unfair to say everything should be regulated in the same way, which means everything has to go to market or come to FDA before it goes to market. That's not true. So I just want to make sure people understand that being regulated, being overseen by FDA does not mean you have to get approval. The only places that we actually ask people to come to FDA before you go to market is in the class 2 versus class 3. And class 1 is the lowest risk devices, which are the thermometers, the tongue depressors, and things that don't require FDA clearance or approval, where it doesn't need the review of what the product consists of. Class 2 are products that are sort of in moderate level of risk in terms of how they operate, what impact they may have to the patients if they didn't work properly. So they get through a moderate level of review, which may some of them may require coming to FDA, some of them may not. And then class 3 are the implantables, like the pacemakers of the world, and prosthetics, et cetera, are considered to be class 3 devices. And the difference between class 3 and class 2, I just want to point out that the difference is class 3 devices need to be made sure that they are manufactured safe and effective also, not just knowing what the design is. So class 2 devices are just knowing what the design is, how do you make it, but class 3 is also manufacturing, and continuously manufacturing in a safe way is important, and that's the extra level. So you can see there's a tiered approach of how we oversee, or how FDA oversees. So that's how let me go back. That's how we oversee all devices. I'm going to switch gears, and that's just the background. I'm going to switch gears to digital health now and think about how we would tackle the world of digital health. Where would we focus on? And this is where this slide becomes very important to think about. This has been our philosophy for the last few years. It is risk-based, which means that we consider the risk of that product to the patients. It's not about what the product is, how big or how small it is, and that gets us into this idea of functionality focus. I was talking to somebody earlier, and they asked me, oh, what if I made an EKG that looks something like this, like a small sensor? Is that still an EKG? And the answer is yes, it's still an EKG machine. You're still providing some sort of information that a doctor or a clinician may use for treating you. But at the same token, if it's in a phone, or if it's in a remote, or if it's in a big as as a box, it doesn't really matter. We'll be focusing on the functionality that you're providing or a manufacturer provides. And the other side of the functionality focus and risk-based is making sure that we are overseeing only technologies or functionalities that are not technologies, but functionalities that happen to be on a higher risk spectrum and not everything. So there's a lot of things in digital health may be very beneficial for patients, but may not necessarily create harm to patients or hurt patients if it didn't work properly. And what we are saying here is we will not focus on everything. We'll only narrowly focus on things that would actually create harm to patients if it didn't work properly. What does that lead us, and where does it all sort of take us from there, from those three big buckets of thought process? It gets us platform independence, which means that it scales with tomorrow's technology of that same being implemented in a way to incorporate that functionality I talked about. So if your EKG tomorrow happens to be in your ring or your wristwatch or somewhere else, it's still EKG product. That allows innovation to happen at a lightning speed or a really fast pace. On the flip side, we also brings the patient engagement part into the picture and puts us into this balancing equation of benefits to patients versus risk to patients. What we have said in the past few years is we want to promote patient engagement, at the same time protect patient safety. So we always are looking for that balance between the benefits to patients and the risk to patients. At the same time, we want to leave the independence from the platforms that, as we know today, tomorrow, who knows what the platform is going to be? We don't know. And I think there are people are coming up with various types of platforms, and we want to be scalable with the philosophy and the thinking and the approach we are taking. So having said that, we've been working for the last few years, and you may have seen a couple of documents that came out that sort of starts highlighting and clarifying how FDA thinks about. And when I say clarifying, it means that we are sort of translating the regulations, the law that we have for the US, where we all gathered and said, the Congress said, promote and protect public health. So keeping that lens in mind, making sure that technology and products, medical products, can promote and protect, we've created policies that in very, very specific areas to talk about how FDA would be looking at. Most recently, what we have been doing is also providing sort of a way to sort of think about not just in the US, but also globally. As you guys know, the borders are becoming almost artificial at some point, especially in the world of digital health. There's no such thing. So if the regulators in other countries also look at the way we are looking at it from a benefits and risk perspective, I think it'll be beneficial for everybody, including us, to take healthcare to the next level, not just US-wise, but globally. So we've been working on that as well. So I'm going to walk you through these three big things, and I'm going to leave you with a thought about how to think about, and that's the way we're sort of left off with the international work, how to think about when you're creating products, you're creating technology, creating excitement in the world of digital health. So very first, in 2013, we put out the mobile medical apps guidance. And I'll share with you, until this guidance was out, there was a lot of confusion in terms of, is that a medical device? Is that not a medical device? Is it high risk? Is that something the FDA is going to oversee? Is that not? So answering those questions, we basically came up with this structure, which talks about, we want to focus on things that have been previously regulated as a medical device. For example, I used the EKG example. Glucose meters are another ones. And let's talk about other things, thermometers, other things that formed medical devices as we know today, but now have taken a different shape because of the world of digital health and sort of the proliferation of smartphones. What we have done is also taken the next level down and said, some of these technologies, people confuse them to be medical devices, but really they're not. And we wanted to clarify that. So we took that approach and said, the world of mobile apps The excitement 3 years, 4 years ago was mobile apps is the future, and it is the future. But we wanted to be clear as we sort of lay out the foundation and sort of ask people to create more and more of these apps, to create apps in a way that actually will be useful. So we divided this world into 3 buckets. At the very bottom of the pyramid, majority of the apps that we have seen today, I think the number is, some people have quoted numbers about 97, 98% of the apps that are available today are at sharing information, making sure people are educated, connecting with a doctor, et cetera, are not even considered medical devices, because you could think about it as Skype or just video chatting with other people. Those are not medical devices if you're just that product. But at the same token, I don't know why you would sell as a medical video chat. It makes no sense. So at that point in time, we said, those kind of apps are not medical devices. Then question comes is, what if I just make it for medical purposes? I'm going to use it in a very specific way. That's when we said, here's a list of apps. And we actually went through laboriously looking at examples and sort of putting them in the document and saying, if you are one of these types of apps, you may be a medical device technically, legally, if you ask a lawyer, but the FDA is coming out and saying, not something we are interested in actively overseeing. We're saying those are things that we would not bother overseeing actively, which means we will not enforce compliance on those types of products. And the last bucket, it comes down to, if you're making either an app that converts a smartphone into a medical device that we've known in other forms or form or factor, you would consider that to be a medical device, because you don't want the disparity between the big box sitting in a doctor's office and a small handheld thing now you're with your phone, on your phone or somewhere else. We're saying we'll treat them the same, and those products form very small numbers. And I'll give you just an example, sort of an idea of what that small number is. For the last, we looked at last 10 years. In the last 3 years, we've seen applications come to FDA, just 20 per year, sort of in that range is the number of apps that we have seen in the top tip of the pyramid. So that gives an indication. That's by design, by the way. We don't want to see all kinds of apps that comes to FDA. We want to only focus on things that are actually either very harmful if they don't work, or they fit into the definition of a medical device that we have regulated in other forms. So think about that. But at the same time, promoting patient engagement was very intent, where we talk about patient self-management apps, tools that help organize, track health information, or just provide health information that may be very specifically tailored for a particular disease or condition. So we talked about those and said, technically, legally, it might meet the definition of a medical device, but not something FDA is interested. If that could work. I think I froze it. So let me switch gears a little bit. I said I will talk about mobile apps, which is what we did first. And we said, after going through that process and getting a lot of feedback from the public, we said, what does it look for health IT in general? So this is another word and a terminology people have been using. Health IT is very broad, just like digital health is very broad. Health IT, some people think about it as just EHRs. Some people think about it as just information. Some people think about it as just records, et cetera, et cetera. So the thing goes, and the list of things goes on and on. When Congress asked FDA to sort of take the lead and work with other agencies to sort of figure out how people are excited in the world of health IT and what I call digital health, should be thinking about who should be doing what and what agencies would be involved in versus not involved in. We needed to provide some clarity. So here's another piece of clarity. Looks like I have a dead clicker. We looked at the world of health IT and said, we proposed a strategy earlier this year, and maybe I turned it off. Yes. User error. I did turn it off. It was kind of off. And sort of said, we can divide the world of health IT into 3 broad buckets. And one of them could be administrative functionality that, again, back to the same principle of not a medical device, not something that federal oversight is needed. And then you add a little bit more clinical functionalities, and you can say, yes, it could be considered sort of risky, but not something that FDA would sort of be involved in. And sort of, we don't think regulatory oversight in the beginning should be the starting point. And so we said, we need a way for that middle bucket to sort of move forward. The last bucket is medical device functionality, back to our principles of things look the same in other worlds, or other forms, and other factors. We would continue to do it in the same way in the world of health IT as well, as people think about it. But the question became, if FDA is not looking at the middle bucket, what should that paradigm look like? So we proposed this strategy. We basically said, in the middle bucket, regulatory oversight doesn't make sense. It's an exciting area. It's a lot of beneficial. It kind of creates efficiencies in the processes that healthcare is delivered. But at the same token, technology needs to come with good quality, should sort of work on good standards and practices. And at some point in time, somebody should check, and it doesn't have to be the regulator or the federal agencies. Somebody could check, and it could be the buyer, it could be anybody else who sort of understands what they're getting, could leverage conformity assessment tools either through third parties, et cetera. And then at the end of the day, this learning environment, that should be a healthcare learning environment, which means that how technology is used, how healthcare is delivered, what impact does it have on the healthcare outcomes, should be fed back into creating better technologies, creating better solutions, et cetera. We said all this should happen. We didn't provide details into how, and we said these areas would be better for a public-private way to focus on sort of what should be done next. So we published this report in April 2014 of this year and said we will provide next steps, and we are working on next steps. The Health IT Safety Center is a great place to start, because if you don't understand where the safety problems lie in the healthcare ecosystem or the health IT ecosystem, we would not be able to fix what needs to be fixed. So our first step was with the Office of the National Coordinator under Health and Human Services. We would create this body that includes public and private partnerships engagement that will start understanding where things are going wrong or where things are going good, so it can be fed back into the creation of technology going forward. So that's the strategy. Again, with the aim towards providing a little bit more clarity at the 30,000 foot level to get people to start thinking in this direction. It gets back to this bigger question in the health IT world, is when you think about electronic health records and health IT in large hospitals, you have a lot of functionalities mixed in. And this thing about clinical decision support people talk about is, I'm just helping doctors make right decisions. But the question really comes down to at what level are you helping doctors make the right decisions, and what decisions are you trying to help them with? So this world can also be divided into two areas. And we said there's some high-risk things. When I talked about software that sort of automatically analyzes images and says, this is where your cancer is, I think we want that right. I think you all would agree with that. At the same token, if that same software that looks at your face and says, I think you're going to get a headache, I don't think that's as risky as you're going to have a cancer, or we think we have a cancer. So we said, if you take those two worlds apart and say, the high-risk stuff, we would continue to regulate as a medical device. The low-risk stuff, headache was an extreme example, but just think about that, right? So there's many things in between. Picking the right medications or drug interaction checks, like WebMD does, or other things other people do, or just automating the drug labels. So think that you can read off the labels or of the OTC drug for the non-prescription drugs. But even for the prescription drugs, there are some complicated drugs you can take and sort of automate that. Actually will help make better healthcare decisions to be made. We said those things, we don't think they're very, very risky. At the same time, we think it'll be beneficial if you can start off help doctors make right decisions. But clearly, on the other side of the things we said, there's some high-risk stuff. Obviously, it makes sense for for public health perspective to sort of have some oversight, but not on the other side. So this is the proposal. We are working on finalizing this. There's more to come, more sort of discussions to have, and not with just within the federal agencies, but having a discussion with the public, the stakeholders, the industry, to sort of get to the right level is really the intent. And back to the fundamental goal that I started off saying, it's about the patients, and we need to keep patients in the front of us before we move forward. So that brings us to this next thing I said I promised I will talk about is when we are making technologies in the digital health, people need to start thinking, what does that mean from a regulatory perspective, and understanding what you're doing and why and where it's going to be used is going to be very critical for us, for everybody to get on the same page in terms of how do we came up into this demarcation of 3 lines. Oh, it's very high risk versus not. It will help you. So we just wrote this paper and it got published a couple months back, I believe. This is in work with an international regulators across the globe and with the medical device industry to sort of come up with the thinking of how should people think about when they create technologies on what they're making and where it's going to be used. So in this paper that was published by the International Regulators Forum, it talked about when you define a product, you should think about what situation or context you're providing the product for, and what's the significance of the information you're going to be providing. So I won't read this, but really it boils down to is based on these 6 things, you can determine the impact. So it's sort of a recipe for us thinking how to put products in those 3 buckets that I talked about, but also other regulators and other federal agencies across the world can sort of take that into consideration as they're looking at it. The goal here is not to create one regulatory regime across the world, but get everybody, including industry, makers, people who are overseeing, people who are buying, can sort of start thinking, tell me what you're making, and I can tell you whether I need more scrutiny, whether I should go check myself, or I should think about a regulator checking it, et cetera, et cetera. So this will drive it home, and this is what was useful. If you look at the horizontal axis, which talks about just taking information and sort of making it more and more meaningful, you can see the line sort of crosses, and I bet you if I ask each one of you here, you'll draw, oh, that's risky over here, and that's not risky over there. The line can be drawn different places. And the idea for this effort was to sort of get people to sort of start thinking about how information manipulation or an analysis that's done on information can actually change the impact to patients as you think about it. So if you're just informing people, just informing and just making clear that you're just informing because it's just one of the many things that a clinician uses to make a decision, or it's not as critical. So it's what I labeled it as low impact. And you start walking yourself towards the right, and you see informs critical decisions. For a critical disease, you can see the sort of the impact on patients sort of gets higher and higher. At the very end, when you're starting to treat or definitively diagnose that you have either cancer or you have a atrial defibrillation or something like that, that would actually start creating sort of pauses for people to saying, how do you know? And then you ask for evidence of saying, how do you know that has actually happening, or that is happening, or that has happened? So as you get more and more deterministic and more and more deterministic in some serious and life-sustaining or life-threatening diseases, I think the level of impact of those technologies to be right sort of raises as well. So just to keep that in perspective. So a lot of stuff I've given you. There's more. I mean, each of these papers are about 40 pages long. I summarized this. I probably didn't do enough justice, but I summarized this in like 3 slides each. But it gives you an idea of work that needs to be and a clarification that needs to be done from the federal perspective. And it's our obligation, our way of contributing to the clarity that's needed in the world of digital health. At the same token, making sure that we are all driving towards a goal of getting healthcare to the next level. Not only just healthcare to the next level, but we want to promote safe innovation. And when I say safe, you think about patients first, and I want to keep repeating patients because you can't forget who you're solving for. You're creating solutions for you and me and the people in this room that's going to use technology at one day. So I'm going to leave with where the digital health at FDA is going. We're excited about keeping patient in the center of the discussion all the time. And as digitization touches every aspect of healthcare, we want to foster trust in innovative technologies. And I think trust equals confidence, equals market share, equals many other things for businesses, and actually more meaningful to take healthcare to the next level. So that's outside, we can contribute. But internally, we want to get ready, use and create an infrastructure, or prepare for a digital future ready at CDRH. So not only do we need the perspective of you guys, and developers, and people who are excited to sort of contribute to digital health, but also we need to get that same excitement internally and create pathways for folks like you who are not attuned to the regulatory way to sort of take products to market. What happens when you create a very brand new product that actually can diagnose cancer? That's where we want to be. We want to see that. We want to be partnering with you, but getting you there and getting on the other side, which will actually help everybody, is really what we're excited about. So I'm going to talk about, I said, foster technology for patient engagement. We're definitely sort of in tune with that. We want to create policies and processes that will be aligned. And really, at the end of the day, we want to advance healthcare and innovation in healthcare. A couple things we have done, and I'm going to talk about that for a second, and we'll wrap up here. Is as a result of mobile apps work, what we have found is the examples given in the website or in the document was not enough. We had to keep the policy live. In other words, we wanted to keep, as we see examples come up every day, we wanted to keep that fresh on our website. So when we get questions, when I come to conference like that, I see examples, and we make the determination, oh, it's more beneficial, it's not as risky. Oh, that's risky, we need to create. And I get more of these sort of repeat questions. What we do is we'll keep refreshing the examples on the website. And our avenue for us at FDA understanding what those examples look like is either through me going to conferences, people coming to me and talking to me directly, or the team at FDA, but also through the email address. The QR code you see will take you to the website. They'll show you where those examples I've been talking about. So what happens when I get a question, when I get an email, or that email box get an email? It goes to a team at FDA, and it's supervised by senior leadership at the CDRH, where we look at the decisions and saying, is it consistent with the policy that we put out in the mobile medical apps guidance, either in the health IT report, and sort of keep them aligned to be consistent. And our goal is to be consistent to how we apply those policies that we're excited about. One, two, promoting patient engagement. At the same time, we're not creating an unnecessary barrier for people that can actually bring technologies to the healthcare place. So here are some tools for you. But I do want to share this one challenge with you. I believe strongly that if digital health can do a couple things, and these are two specific things I want to challenge you with, is how can technology effectively catalyze prevention? I talked about taking the paradigm from treatment to prevention. If we can prevent something, I think we actually made some progress. So that would mean that how can we change the dial or move the dial on compliance? Medication compliance is one of the biggest problems. How do we sort of enhance behavior or change behavior to get people from where they are to where they need to be? How do you promote healthy lifestyle? If those are all behavioral sort of things and how people behave until we make products that go into their, what I call normal workflow, as you and I stay living and sort of eating, drinking, and sort of doing our daily life activities. How, if technology becomes part of that, I think we have an opportunity to sort of change behavior. At the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, as you can imagine, the previous panel and others talked about measuring sleep, measuring other activities, and you see a lot of excitement about measuring all kinds of data. Can we come up with a different type of information that will truly tell what our body does? We're all in the quest of understanding what our body is doing and will do, or is doing as I speak, or other things. We have the same old indicators. For example, in 1954, the AHA, the American Heart Association, recognized ECG as we know of today. We haven't changed. There's no new ECG after that, or no new big change that happened after 1954. Are we on the cusp of finding a new thing? I think we are. So can we all find out? And this is what sort of gets me excited when I see the virtual reality and all these different technologies that sort of talk about looking at the world from outside. What if we could do that same thing for understanding our body? I think that's the place we want to be. It's a moonshot, but I'm really excited to see such talented group here to talk about how do we do that, and maybe that will help us take us to the next level. So let me summarize by saying, we're really excited from a federal government perspective, but don't forget patient safety and making products that actually work. In our words, we call it effective, is really important. And my one message to you guys would be is to reach everybody, not reach only a certain set of population, but if you can reach everybody and change behavior, that will ultimately lead to better treatment and outcomes, is what's going to help us take it to the next level. And the resultant will follow, will lower cost for everybody, including us, as resources become scarce and scarce. And thank you very much for your attention, and I'm hoping to have some questions, I guess, John, right? For 10 minutes. Okay. Yeah.
There's a microphone and both sides.
Question.
So the FDA, so basically when we're writing up, we cannot make a medical recommendation, right? But with all the analytics and data collection that we're doing right now, we can get there very, very soon. That the analytics will start defining the patterns and finding those things, but we still could not make recommendations. The only way we can do it right now is to give an option to a doctor and for them to look at the recommendation and make their choice. But statistics shows us today the doctors only base their decision on about 20% of the actual data,
yes,
and 80% on their experience with other patients, not from this patient. So I'm just wondering, like, pretty soon we'll know about the patient more by collecting the data from specific patient than the doctor does. We will get into recommendations, medical recommendations, very, very soon. How we should approach that?
Yeah, so I think that's an excellent point. Today, you described today's state really accurately. I think we have so much data. I actually call it data obesity because we actually have too much data. But let's try to get to that next level. I think this is what real. When I say evidence, people need to have some trust in whatever you analyze and sort of the magic answer is 5. I don't know what that 5 means, but it is 5. I crunched millions and millions of bits of data, and I got the answer 5. So what does 5 mean? If people don't know what 5 means for their health, it's going to be useless 5. So if we can get there and sort of get doctors at the same time educated, that's when I said it's not going to be just the technologists who sort of take data and make it 5, or call it 6, or whatever the number is. It's going to be the doctors also sort of understanding, building confidence, building trust, sort of having the community sort of think about what 5, we need to start thinking about 5, and if you're 5, it's good, or really bad, or really good. We need to sort of get there, I think, and that will only come by scientifically thinking about how do we build that trust and confidence in people?
So we still need to go to doctors. It probably will take the next generation of doctors.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a while, not a while, but it's going to take some time for people to understand what that means. And we're going to find some new things.
Yeah, I heard the doctors basically saying we don't need all your data, we have our own experience.
Yeah, we have a lot of data.
Yeah, we have.
Yep.
So, first of all, thanks for sharing all this wonderful information. I have a couple of questions. One is, how can you guys improve the process so that the time taken to approve something is very short? It shouldn't take too long to approve something, whether it's an app or a device. And second thing, how do you intend to stop or prevent abuse of all the data being shared?
You're talking about privacy, I take it, when you...
Yeah, you can talk about privacy, but as the gentleman talked about, a lot of data is there. So how can we prevent the data being abused or not being sold in the market?
Well, that's what I think is referring to abuse with data. That was an interesting one. I didn't think data will be abused, but I guess you can see it from a privacy perspective. Let me tackle that first, because I already forgot what you asked me first. So let me just tackle the second question. I think when you think about data, I think there's a social sort of norm today of what we think about is mine and private and I don't want to share. I use this example all the time. I have friends in India who are on Facebook and they're my schoolmates. I don't share anything on Facebook, but when I go to their website, I see everything being shared. So what we consider HIPAA and what we consider private or what we consider non-shareable changes. And I think we're going to be I don't know where we're going to all land into what acceptance we have for the tolerance of sharing data, but I see the amount of tolerance is changing, and I think it's increasing in terms of what we share and what we don't share. As you think about it from even what we know of today in our transactions in the financial world is completely shared, even we like it or not. So I don't know where we are going to end up, but these are social aspects that we need to consider. The first one I forgot. Time for approvals or clearances. So let me just clear up one quick thing. By law, we are required to clear products within 90 days. When I say clear, there's two words. I mean, clearance and approvals are two different things. Approvals are for class 3 products, clearance for class 2 products. When I say 90 days, and my fundamental suggestion to everyone in this room is don't wait till the product is complete and done and about to ship and then go to FDA. That's a bad strategy. Think about it, engaging with FDA first. And really, FDA is looking for your technology, your way of you're making things, and have you tested and proven your product. Don't wait till you're about to launch the product and go, oh no, I've got to go to FDA. Of course, it's going to be at least 90 days. And that's not going to work out for any business strategy. So try to engage with FDA, understand the expectations, read the documents we put out. If you're I'll give you an example of an audiometer company who was thinking about making an audiometer using cell phone. And when they came talk to us, I said, have you read the standard on audiometers? That actually is standard that industry got together and sort of created for what frequency to use, et cetera. And they had not heard about it. Great company, really smart people, but if they don't know what's relevant in the medical field, it's going to be a missed opportunity. So think about those kind of things. And there's a lot of stuff available out there already. FDA puts out many guidance documents, and that's one of the things. Because there's so many guidance documents, it's hard for people to sort of understand. But if you're focusing in a faculty like hearing or surgery or something else, it's easy to sort of do that from that perspective and sort of get those things. So there's many ways you can sort of reduce time to market and with having FDA in the loop. We have 4 questions and probably you have time for one more. So you guys want to do toss on your kinds? Okay.
All right. I'm developing a class, probably a de novo class 2 device, and I'm thinking kind of generally, I think a lot of people in this audience would probably benefit from having a very clear understanding of exactly how long it would take to clear or approve their device, and considering for investment purposes or just planning in general. Is there a way that we can access the time to approval for a kind of a very large subset of novel devices in the mobile health space to give us kind of a clearer answer than, it shouldn't take too long.
It should take too long, but anyways. So you need to understand the reason I shared the point about anything gets regulated from a thermometer to a robotic surgery. Every novel device is different. The complexity in every novel device is different. The maturity in the organizations that submit documents to FDA is different. And that's why it takes like any other process, there's variations in sort of from 90 days, and there's a minimum, there's maximum. Some have cleared in 5 days, some have cleared in 15, some have gone about a year because there's a lot of back and forth and so on and so forth. And depending on where you are and the level of risk and impact to patients sometimes drive the level of scrutiny that goes into it. Because at the end of the day, we want manufacturers to sort of manage patient safety risk. There are standards that have been written to talk about how to think about patient safety risk. If you sort of answer most of those questions and document them, it becomes the most easiest path to success. So it's a roundabout answer, but yes, there's ways. Again, back to the same question.
I was just thinking when you were mentioning that you were collecting a database of apps that you were putting online so that people could kind of get a sense for what was regulated and what wasn't. It'd be really helpful to also have kind of a database of mobile health devices or things like that you could also detail how long it took them to get approved and things of that nature.
That's actually a good suggestion, and we do it for all products. We put out a report every quarter, I believe, that talks about our performance, our agency's performance on clearances, the number of clearances that we clear, and then sort of what's our mean and what's the stats behind it. We have not, and it's kind of hard for us to sort of do it just for mobile health because it's really the lines very blurry when you talk about mobile health. But we do have some of that information, if that's helpful.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.